listening to Lyrical Rhapsody with Jenny. Lyrical Rhapsody.
This is Jenny Love, and you are listening to a very special conversation with André Cymone. This is a special opportunity for me because I adore his family. André is a very special spirit. We know him from Prince fame, from being the bass guitarist for the pre-Revolution era. We know him from Dance Electric, his own solo career, and we know him from co-writing and producing songs for Jody Watley, like Looking for a New Love, Real Love. What I know of André is his heart and his passion for social issues and for the condition of our world as a whole. So it is my pleasure to welcome André Cymone to the call.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So you have a new album coming out, and it is called The Stone. When will that be released?
It's set to be released February 18th.
February 18th, and I have had the honor of getting some sneak peeks here, and wow. I watched the video you got my response last night, but when I watched the video last night, I was just taken back. I mean, really. The premiere video for Rock and Roll, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
That was hot. That was awesome. So before we even get started, right out the box, tell me about it. Because everything from the flavor of the video itself, the song, just the vibe, everything was on point. Just talk to me.
You know, it's my whole approach to where I'm coming from right now as an artist is one of organic, just release. It's just trying to get back to where in my opinion, what it's all about. It's just about playing. It's about entertaining. It's about having fun, and that's what I try to do with this video. It's just really simple. It's not, there's no gimmicks. There's nothing. Just us playing. It's a band, and it's and that's what the track is all about. That's really what the music is about.
And what really impresses me with the way that you approach everything is when we go back to some songs that you've recently released while we're awaiting the Stone, but these are things you've done in the recent past, is American Dream. And we actually had a conversation and did a piece for Huffington Post on that. And tell us, for people that may not be aware, tell us about what that was and what you did with American Dream.
Well, American Dream was another song. It was two songs I released. I did one song called America, which was for the Barack Obama re-election campaign.
Mm-hmm.
To do whatever I could to try to, get people, follow me on Facebook and, fans of mine and people and family and anybody that I could really, to make sure that they voted and they understood and they passed the word. And because I believe that, everybody knows at least 10, 15 people, that people can go around and, get all of those 10 or 15 people and they can get the 10 or 15 people they know, and on and on and on. You can start to, put together a movement and get people to actually make a difference. And that's what I was trying to do with that. So there was that, and then there was another song called American Dream. So there's America and American Dream. And American Dream is about, basically the 99% of people who basically are just trying to survive. And, they're up against a major, in my opinion, people who are trying to keep them in a position or keep them out of a position of power. And so, it's what we've been talking about, and or what people have been talking about. It's been on the news, and, people just basically trying to stand up and get, whether it's, health care and not have, somebody trying to block all that kind of stuff with their money and, trying to keep the status quo the way that it is because they're able to make a living for their families and continue to live the lifestyle that they've been living, while people on the ground are just trying to survive. So, that song was basically addressing issues like that. And I'm, just definitely in the songs that I'm writing, trying to stand, with, people, just stand with the average person because that's where I come from. That's what I am, and so I want to help and do what I can to try to be a voice, to address some of those issues.
And I respect that. I think it's important for me to bring up, because I want the audience to be aware that when you released America, those proceeds were going to the campaign for Barack Obama. Yeah.
I don't make a penny, and I'm not interested in making a penny on any of that. It's not even about trying to make money or any of that kind of stuff. It's just about trying to get the word out, trying to get people, because I understand, the average person, they work hard, and, they get up, they go to work, and then they got to do it all over again every day. And so, I think, for them to be as plugged in to everything, is obviously asking a lot, and so it's up to, artists and people of good conscience to step up to the plate and, and be, and do what they can to help, put it out, put the word out in an artistic way so that people can, can take it in and understand it and start to ask questions, and then maybe they'll get involved if they, feel so inclined, or if they, if they can understand that there are artists out there that they can trust, then they can just hear the words, and understand that, hey, we have to all be involved. If we want our world to be a better world, we all have to play a part.
Watching all the perfect clouds blowing in the winds of change. The walls are all crumbling down. Everybody feels the pain. People on bended knee, hoping they can see the sign. Don't lose your faith, no, no, no. Money trying to shut you down. Shame the white, blue, and red. We gotta win this war. Win it or the dream is dead. As long as you can see the sun, it's gonna be a brighter day. Wake up and dare to dream. American dream. It's alive and well, my brother. Alive and living color. Dream. American dream. Don't you let them try to take it. It's yours and you can make it. Dream. Yeah, yeah. People of the 99, time to stand up and fight. Can't allow the one to cheat. Gotta make them do what's right. Raise your voice, that's the only way we can beat them down to the ground. This is your moment to shine. Money can't buy your life. Money can't wash your brain. I can think for myself. I can see through the rain.
That's actually a question that I wanted to bring up and ask you, is what role music has in that. Because if we look back at, at any of the major movements in time, you had Sam Cooke, and you had all of these people who were willing to Marvin Gaye, to take these stances and to use their music as that tool. And unfortunately, in popular music, we don't see that often today. So I have so much respect for it. But can you talk a little bit more about what you would like to see the role of music take in the future, and how we accomplish that?
Well, there's a lot of ways to accomplish it, but, you're right. I mean, I think, the history of music really with artists like Bob Dylan, Bob Marley, the Beatles, Stevie Wonder, I mean, just to name a few, they made people think. They made people dream. They made people fight and stand up and get involved in their world, on a global level or on a local, level. And, and so from that perspective, in my opinion, music is power. And I just think that, obviously music today has been, and I assume, I have to assume that it's by design, has been marginalized because, obviously they took it out of the school systems. You no longer have, music programs or, a lot of arts programs like they did before, which, that was a lot of people's way out of some undesirable circumstances. I know for me in particular, and for a lot of people that I know, growing up in Minneapolis and Minnesota, a lot of people, that was their way out. And that's how, artists that are very, very famous these days, were able to actually, have a platform early on. They had lessons, they had music in school, and all that's gone now, and so, so I just think artists can play a major, major role, in in society and keeping people informed. And I just think, music right now is kind of like background noise. It's like funny entertainment, and it's like it's fine as long as it's funny, and it's fine as long as it's, some sort of, it's jokey. It's almost like, like a court gesture kind of thing, and that's cool. But that's just not, the kind of artist I've ever wanted to be, or the kind of music I've ever really wanted to do. So I just think that, this is kind of our time, I look at it that way, and, we're only on here, in the scheme of things for a brief moment. And so you really have to make the best of it, and you can't take it for granted. You can't squander it, because before you know it, it's gone, or you're no longer able to, play a role or participate or be a real factor. So you have to, while you can, you have to get involved, and you have to make a difference, because it's not necessarily for, you. I think it's an issue that's larger than, any individual. It's for, your kids if you have them, or your kids' kids, or your cousins or your nephews or whoever. It's just, it's just for the sake of the world and for the sake of our, our inhabiting this planet. I think also that, the most amazing real estate you can own is your place here on Earth, and so I just think you have to really,
I hear you,
understand that and take advantage of that. It's important.
And speaking of artists of all genres, speaking out about political issues that affect them, especially their fan base, speak on that, because, different artists have different fan bases. So just if you could talk a little bit about that and what that means to you, in addition.
Well, I think, it's huge. It's what, in my opinion, it's what it's all about. As an artist, and there's a big difference between artists and entertainers. And I think artists really understand that, that if they have a gift and they understand it, they have a responsibility. If you think back to what music originally was and what it was meant to do, it was meant to spread messages. They had minstrels who, and I don't want to, not to get off into, a historical aspect, but this is always how I looked at it when I first
go right ahead.
got into music. It's like there were minstrels who, because I always think if you break things down to the simplest, most basic, reality, you really find out what things are really supposed to be about. And in that instance, if you look back, to back when people were in villages and in huts and whatnot, you had different villages scattered all over a country, and the only way they knew about what was going on in another village was through minstrels, and drums. And so, minstrels would go from town to town, or from village to village, or from hut to hut, or whatever, and they would say what was going on in the other village. And they'd go, oh, really? That's what's going on there? Oh. And they do it with song and poetry, and sometimes with art, with paintings and sculptures, and all these things told a story, and it was very important for the evolution of our society, and a lot of people lose sight of that, and which is a very important element. And I just think that, that's what it's all about for me now. And I just think that, to get back to the question, I think that that's a very, very important, part with artists and their different constituencies or their different fan base, because, you take like a Bono. He's done amazing work, in AIDS in Africa and just helping bring people's awareness up, and it's not just, he's not doing it just for average people, although, average people who have a willing ear to hear what's going on, obviously, understand where he's coming from. But I think also, he gets just the ear of other countries and other people, that are interested in doing philanthropic work, to put their money into something that they know is a labor of love from somebody who obviously they trust, because this guy could be doing anything else, any number of other things. He could be living on his own little island somewhere, spending his money and, raising his family, but, he's out there, doing working for people, and, I have immense respect for people like him, for people like Stevie Wonder, for people like Bob Marley, who actually sacrificed, and there's also, I was watching a news program over the weekend. I think it was like Melissa Harris Perry or something on MSNBC, but she was talking to Harry Belafonte, who's got a program called Sankufa, which is about artists getting involved, and sort of standing up and speaking out about, inequality, speaking out about what's going on, what people really need to understand that's, behind closed doors that, have a very, very profound impact on the average person's life. And so, it's what's, underneath or behind the news that you don't see, that, artists, get behind there and pull the curtain back and try to expose the people to what's really going on. And I just think that, for everybody's fan base, they need to do that. And that's one of the main reasons really why I, re-entered the, the entertainment business, is because I think, and I'm not trying to, I don't say this to be cocky or anything like that, but I think I have a gift. And I just think that, for years I really hadn't really looked at it that way, because, I've been, trying to help other people, do their thing, and, see other people sort of, realize their dreams. And I realized at a certain point that, I was helping a lot more people than, people were kind of, helping me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just know a lot of things that you do and that you've done that people aren't even aware of, music-wise and beyond. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that you have to, it just came a time, for me to do my thing, because I've been working with artists, and, artists are interesting. I mean, they're really, they all have their own artistic way that they want to express themselves. And I think, and you have to respect that, and so for me as a writer and a producer, I work with artists, I always think, God, you should do something like this, or you should do something like that. And, and sometimes they're receptive and sometimes they're not. And then it comes to a point where you realize, you can't make people do what you want them to do. And that happened to me enough times where I finally said, you know what? If you think that that's something that's really, really important, then you need to do it. And that's kind of where, my rebirth kind of came from. And, once I started writing, I realized that it just, I had opened a Pandora's box inside of me that just, it was like opening the floodgates, because I realized this is what I should be doing. And so I have a gift for it, and I want to do whatever I can do, to stand up and step up for, for my fan base and for people, who, I guess, some people who are voiceless or they have more of a powerful voice than they know they have, and I want to just, be the person that can help them understand it and help them learn, to use that voice to make a change, and not just, their life, but in the life of others, and hopefully, and make this world a better place.
I'm very glad that rebirth happened for you. I have to say that for myself, in the conversation that you and I have shared, the thing that comes across always with you is your authenticity, and that is a rarity at that level. And just the sincerity for everything that you're doing and everything that you're a part of. So you're beyond being an extremely talented artist. There's that human being that is just wants to really be, just the word inspiration comes to me. What I would like to ask you next is, when you look at your career, like when you span your career, and when we have all of these different times and all of these different experiences, what are just some and you just kind of hit on it a little bit, but what are just some lessons that you've learned that you'd want to sit down and, like my daughter is a young musician, and whether she uses it just for her own cathartic, experience or what have you, but what would you share with them? Like, what would you want to say?
I mean, there's so many. The thing that I would say is, my first thing is be focused. Figure out what it is that you want from your music, from being an artist. Find out what role you want to play. Do you just want to be an entertainer? Do you want to be a performer? Do you want to be an artist? Because they're very, very different things. And once you can focus on what it is that you want to do, and figure out what your strengths are, what your gifts are. Because some people, have God-given gifts, and they're in there. Sometimes it takes a minute for them to, sort of manifest themselves. It's like a light bulb goes off when it's ready, and I think it's ready when you're ready. But other than that, it's like be passionate about anything. I just think, my advice to anybody would be passionate about anything that you do, no matter what it is. Take no prisoners. I know for me, growing up, when I first started music, I took it extremely serious. There was I didn't care about holidays. I didn't care about, Super Bowls or playoffs or any of that kind of stuff. It was all about music. I mean, you talk about eat, sleep, think, breathe, all of that kind of stuff. Music. So I practiced all the time. I mean, that's all I did. Whether I was walking, going to school, I was usually riding my bike with my guitar strapped on, playing it while I was pedaling, or going over to, girlfriend's house or whatever. I mean, it's just, that's what I did. That's all I did. If I sat in front of a TV at all, I'd be playing my guitar while I was sitting there, trying to see what was going on. I mean, I do that now. But I just think that, and then you have to be passionate. And then I think when you get to the next level where you perform, you have to have the attitude that, you are the best at what you do. Whether you are or not, I mean, that's always going to be, debatable. But in your mind, you should step up thinking and believing, without a shadow of a doubt, that there's nobody that's out in that audience. There's nobody that's watching you on any kind of, device, known to man now or yet to be known to man, that you can't take out, and I just think that that's always been my mentality. And I think that, when you sing, if you're a singer or if you play, you have to look at your microphone or the speaker that you're, projecting whatever it is you're doing into. Look at that as, as the people that you want to communicate to. Whether it's, do you want to communicate to 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, as many people as possible? Whatever that mic is, whatever that receptacle is, that is the gateway to those ears. And so whatever you put in that, make sure you put everything you have into that, and every time, because sometimes you only get one shot. You may not get another chance to make another impression. So you just have to, be very, very, powerful.
I want to take it a little deeper now even and talk about a song that you wrote that has special significance for me as well. And it is the song Trayvon. And I know you and I have spoken, and you're aware of the involvement that I've had with the Trayvon Martin movement. And I have to tell you, when I listened to the song, what struck me most about the track was the deep, very deep, tangible sorrow that I felt through the melody, through the chords, from the guitar, through your voice, just the vibe in and of itself, and your transparency of your own emotions or your own loss. Just tell me about that being born in that process.
Wow, it's even powerful now. I mean, just,
yeah.
Coming back to me, I get chills and I almost, get, almost tear up, because Trayvon is me. Trayvon is my sons, my nephews, it's my family, it's my sisters, it's my brothers, it's everybody, it's Malala, it's everybody, on the planet who's ever, met the hands of injustice, and that's what it's all about. It's really sad, because, like I said, this is our world, and, the kind of world that I want to live in doesn't have room for people like George Zimmerman to just be able to shoot a kid down, because he doesn't like the way he's dressed, or, or anything like that. That's just, that's such a tragedy, because if something like that happened to somebody in my family, I don't even know what I would do. I know it wouldn't be a good thing. And so I have a lot of immense respect, for Trayvon's family, because I don't know that I'd be able to handle it as well as they have. But, you know, I mean, I wrote the song when I first initially heard about Trayvon's killing. And, you know, and I thought, you know, I just thought, I don't know what I can do because, you know, I mean, I've been, you know, so under the radar. I don't even know if I decided to make an album at that point yet. But I know that had a lot to do with me realizing that I need to get involved in music and do what I've been placed here to do, and that's write songs and speak out about things just like this, you know. And so I wrote the song. I was gearing up to do whatever I could, and then, you know, President Barack Obama stood up and said, you know what, Trayvon could have been my son. And then, you know, obviously it got the attention that it deserved. And then they brought George Zimmerman to trial, which I thought, okay, great, you know, justice is going to be served. And I just assumed that, justice would, you know, take course and, you know, he'd be put behind bars where, in my opinion, he belonged. But when he was found innocent, you know, and, you know, I couldn't believe it. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to go and record this. And you know, the thing is, it's such a raw emotion, you know, and such a raw thing that was done, that the only way it could be recorded was raw, you know, just the bare minimum. I mean, because obviously I could have done it with a band, and I recorded after I wrote it when I first heard about him being killed. Mm-hmm. I recorded it after the not guilty verdict came back.
And for me, you know, being a part of Coalition for Trayvon Martin, and, you know, I'm going to do everything I can. Well, I'm going to make sure that Sabrina and Tracy hear the song. One thing that impressed me extremely, it's on your page, it's a free download, mm-hmm. and I listened to it, and I don't know, because I am so connected to the situation, just from my own involvement, I did cry. And I want you to know from the deepest recesses of my spirit how much I appreciate. I know you did it for your reasons. It had nothing to do with Jenny Love, but there's a million Jenny Loves right now who I hope hear this song and have the experience that I did listening to it, because it was healing to have you be so transparent and so genuine, and as you say, so raw. That was a healing experience for me, Andre, and as a friend and as an artist, I thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. I mean, thank you so much.
On a cold, rainy night, he went out for a walk. He wasn't looking for a fight. No, he wasn't afraid to talk. Trying to get from a boy to a man, it ain't easy. When you're black, ain't no easy way. You can dream for tomorrow, but still you gotta live. You got to live for the day. Started finding thinks he might have done something wrong. He never asked any questions. Oh no, he just kept tagging along. Maybe if I turn the corner, he'll fade away. Trying to get home, Trayvon, I can hear you calling. I've been waiting, you've been gone too long. Just a bad dream. The Sunshine State has another example of another point of view. But I don't share their phony wisdom. If you can stand your ground, and I got a right to stand mine too. They shot my brother down cold-blooded, coming home from this store. He didn't have a gun in his pocket, just some candy, juice, and nothing more. I should be angry, but I still can't believe it's true. No, no. When you're coming home, boy, Trayvon, I can hear you crying. I've been waiting. You've been gone too long. Trayvon, I can hear you laughing. I got a pain in my heart. Said something's wrong. Someone wake me. Tell me this is just a dream. Just a bad dream. I should be angry, but I can't believe it's real. Are you coming home, boy? When you coming home, boy? Please.
And you know the song, it's their song. I mean, it's not my song. You know, it's I wrote it. It was inside of me. It had to come out, and it's their song. Whatever they want to do, they can. I don't want anything from it. If there's anything that they can do to to bring attention to raise awareness for, that's what it was. That was what it was. Given birth for.
Brother, you have a beautiful heart. You have a beautiful heart. I know people are wanting the stone, talk about the stone. I'm going to make them wait just a little bit longer. Because on a much lighter note, I want to address one question that I hear people ask over and over again, and for whatever reason they have the interest of. Are you and Prince still friends? I know the answer, and I know you're not saying. But there are still going to be those people that want to know. So let's just like you to talk about it a little bit, about that relationship. Whatever you want to share, don't share. But the fact that you guys, of course, are still brothers.
Yeah. I guess like any family, though me and Prince are not blood related, we've spent many years being brothers, living in the same house, eating out of the same refrigerator, ironing each other's clothes. Literally, you really don't get much closer, even if you were blood related than we were. So, I have a love for him that, obviously will live in me forever. And at this point, we're very, very cool, very close. Obviously, we all go through ups and downs and go through whatever we go through. But the bottom line is, I owe him a large, large debt in terms of my creative path and my creative journey, and I think vice versa, to be honest. I think we owe each other, because I would be really, remiss to not, be honest about, a relationship
Your
like
contribution.
that. Yeah, because so many people don't do that, and though I'm very, very humble, I just don't want to, people to have any misunderstandings about, who we are, how we came to be friends, and all that kind of stuff. But I've always been really cool with him. For the most part, I've always tried to do whatever I could do, to help him, as much as I can, in my little capacity. I mean, it's the same way I look at, how I try to help anybody that, are trying to, realize whatever they're trying to realize. And so, I mean, he was basically the same. We became friends, at a really young age. And, I think it's, a lot to do with destiny because, I do know the story of my mother, and, she has, she's had an amazing journey just as an individual. Her story is something, it's the kind of thing that people write movies about. But
I never get tired of hearing stories about Ms. Anderson, so I'm all ears. You want to share?
Well,
Go right ahead.
We came from a very, very humble reality. We lived in the projects in Minnesota, and it's I mean that's a lot of people think that's a bad thing. For me, it was a blessing because it's a community of people, and I'm starting to realize now that I'm a little older and maybe a little bit wiser that we were probably part of some sort of a government experiment, because they put every kind of nationality in a project area. And it seems like, if you step back and you think about, the time period that it was, because obviously it was, right around the civil rights era, and if they ever wanted to find out, okay, what would it be like if you had, blacks living with whites and whites living with Hispanics and blah, 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 how would they actually, deal with each other? Anyway, that's where I came from. And then my mother was fortunate enough to, she basically worked, cleaning houses for people. And, it's kind of like the movie The Help, and she made a better life for herself and for her family and moved us, out of that situation into an upper middle class, black neighborhood. And I wound up going to a new school, and I found myself a stranger. I didn't know anybody there, and I remember they were calling roll, and, I had to go in the middle of the gym and, get all my sort of walking papers, to what classes I had to go to, all that kind of stuff. And then they said, all right, go stand against the wall. And I looked at all these mugs, and I just thought, oh my God, it's, because I left a place where I knew everybody. I had, I was, a sort of a, I mean, I had a position of power, and I could tell people about my music. I was always telling everybody back then that I was gonna, be the next Jackson, Michael Jackson. I was gonna one day be on stage with the Jacksons and blow them off the stage. And I was cocky even back then. And so when I was looking down this line of all these strangers, I saw this one kid, who looked like, he kind of reminded me of me a little bit, and I thought I'm going to go stand next to him. So I went and stood next to him, and I said, hey, my name is André, blah, 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 and he was like, oh, my name is Fred, blah, blah. And I was like, and so we started talking, and I said, what are you into? He said, I do music. I said, oh, that's funny, so do I. He said, what do you play? I said, I play bass, a little guitar, I said, what do you play? He said, I play piano and guitar and, drums a little bit. And I was like, oh, cool. And he said, you want to come jam? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to come jam. And he said his father had a little apartment that, they had some music gear there. And I said, let's go, we went and jammed. And we started jamming, and, he was showing me some piano stuff, which was amazing, because he could play Man from U.N.C.L.E. and the Peanuts theme and all that other kind of stuff. And I was like, this dude is actually really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, whoa. Because he was and he's playing with two hands, and I'm like, wow. So I was like kind of tripping, and I was like trying to, play along, and he was showing me how you play triads and stuff like that, because, I mean, I never had any equipment, we were, like I said, we were poor, so I didn't have anything. He had a piano at his house, and we didn't have any nothing. We had my father's bass, and that was it. And it was an upright bass, and he didn't want me to play it. So, it was a very interesting thing. So, we jammed, and we started talking, and while I was sitting there and he was showing me the piano stuff, I looked on the piano because his father had a bunch of, photos, and, they were black and white, they looked, really kind of cool, like back in the day era, bands and stuff like that. And I looked at it, and I was like, wow, that one guy right there, I said, with the upright bass, God, he looks a lot like my dad. And he said, really? He's like, yeah. He said, well, when my dad gets home, you should, ask him, see if he knows who that is, And so wasn't long after that his dad walked through the door. I think his dad first was like a little bit shook because he was like, who's this in the house, kind of thing, And he said, he introduced me and all that kind of stuff. Dad is Andre. And I said, excuse me, but who is that? And he looked at the picture, and he looked at me, and he looked at the picture, and he just started laughing. I mean, this deep, deep laugh. He was like, like a big, And I was kind of like, what? He said, and then he said, you Fred Anderson's son. He said, oh, my God. And I was like, what? And he said, we used to play in a band together for years. He said, you and Prince, you guys used to hang out when you were little kids. I was like, what? And it turns out that, we knew each other, and I didn't even know it. And that's why I say I think his thing, our thing was a little bit of, just fate. That.
Well, as I was going to say, isn't the universe awesome? I mean, there is no coincidence, and how awesome is that? Yeah, it's a fantastic story. I'll never get tired of hearing it.
To bring it back to now, he actually invited me to a show recently, which was amazing. I mean, it was an unbelievable show, and he asked me where I wanted to sit, right? And I was like, I'm cool wherever wherever is fine. He said, well, he asked me if I wanted to, sit out by the sound booth, or if I wanted to sit on a couch by the stage. And I thought, couch by the stage sounds pretty cool. He said, okay. And so, when it came time for the show, and it was, I guess he was doing a Third Eye Blind, girl gig kind of thing. And so, the guy, guided me. It was me, Catherine, and my manager. He guided us to this couch. Turns out the couch is literally on stage. I'm like, hold on. Literally, like maybe 2 feet away from the guitar player, and I mean, we're sitting there. And I could see the whole crowd, and obviously, if I could see them, they could see us.
Right.
I was going, oh my God! It was like I better, I guess toward the end of the show, he had somebody come and get me, and I thought they were coming to get me to come and play, which I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. But they had me come over there, and I kind of just was standing there, and he was like, he was talking to me while he was playing, and I'm like, you seem a little busy right now. Now might not be the time to, catch up on, But it was actually really cool. I really appreciated that, and he's done things, definitely throughout the years that are really sweet, and I mean. He holds a very, very special place for me, and always.
Well, I know that your relationship has been ongoing, and that people are just they just have that curiosity and they want to know those things. And I feel like now I appreciate you going into what you have, and it's just information people love to listen to. But I think we've satiated the curiosity of your relationship with Mr. Nelson, and even the beginning of the Minneapolis days. So the Stone, brother. I'm ready to hear about it. I know that it's going to be released 18th. The way that it came about is amazing. I think it's a new platform for artists to be able to bring their work to their fan base. Then we have the album itself. I was listening to it last night. Talk to me.
Well, it's, obviously a labor of love, and it was something that, is...
And it comes through. It comes through.
Yeah, and I would say it's long overdue, but I don't think that it is. I think it's right on time. I mean...
Yeah,
it wasn't something that I sat around trying to, plot or plan or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It just came about like things should, very organically, and and it's just time for for a record like this, in my opinion, and I think not only that, it's time because I think people now understand that they can get involved in their artists, they can get involved in their and where the artists are coming from. They can help artists become, artists become well-known, world-renowned, and all that other kind of stuff. It's a very, it used to be a very unseen sort of relationship, because there was always the label, and, people always looked at, labels as this all omnipotent, source of everything, and now that's pretty much not the case, and definitely in this particular record, we're doing it all ourselves. So it's definitely just artists, fans that are making this happen, So and how far I go, it's going to depend on how far the fans want me to go. If they push me, to the ends of the earth, that's where we're going, So, I mean, from that standpoint, that's an amazing thing. But as how the album came about, The Stone, actually the title of The Stone, I'm a very philosophical person, as you probably can tell. Personal religions and personal, ideologies and, all that kind of stuff, and it's very rooted just in simplicity, to be honest with you. My attitude toward, a lot of things, life, is just strip. And strip meaning, or naked, which is one of the songs on the record, is where you take everything away, and then you evaluate what's important. Take away buildings, take away cars, take away money, take away everything, all that kind of stuff. And then what's important? What has, meaning to you? What do you want? If you don't have all that other stuff that's sort of distracting, it's about people. It's about others. It's not just you. Obviously, that's old. That gets boring. But it's about other people. It's about the world you live in, your environment, And that's my easiest way to understand that aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is, religion. And my aspect is God is my conscience, and my conscience is my guide. It's that simple. That's my religion. So, and the stone was created to reflect that. The stone is, before it was written on the page, it was written on the stone, And so those are some of my philosophies, and that's how I came to this point. Kind of a consistent theme, throughout this record and probably the next record as well. But yeah, I mean, and so how it all came about originally was, I reconnected with my, my old manager who I hadn't spoken to for, quite a while, and I think I may have told you the story before, but, he had, I had told him that, one of the things that I do now, because he said, when are you going to do another record? I said, I'm thinking about doing one now. He said, well, what's different about what you're doing now than, what you were doing back when we were, we connected before? I said, well, now it's more of a, I'm kind of more of a rock and roll artist, because I think, rock and roll suits me, suits my personality, and it suits the kind of music that I like to write. He said, oh, really? He said, what's that? I said, well, I'm writing a lot more on acoustic guitar now than I was before. And, now I kind of sing and play. He said, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. He said, I'd love to hear it. I said, well, come by. So we set it up for him to come by, and he came by the house, and I started playing him, one of the songs that I had written, and I played it a little bit. And then when I got toward the chorus, I stopped, and I said, right here it kind of goes like, and I was explaining it to him. He said, well, just play it. I said, well, I'm still working on it. He said, oh, so you can't sing it and play it all the way through yet? I said, well, I probably could. He said, well, I'll tell you what, since you probably can. He said, why don't you do that for me next week? Because I'm going to, I want you to basically work on that so that you can play it and sing it without stopping. And I want you to play me that song that you're playing now, and then maybe a couple others. And I was like, I really didn't even know what to make of that. I was kind of a little bit, I wasn't sure if I should be annoyed or, felt disrespected or whatever.
Yeah.
I was going to play him a CD and stuff that I had put together with, it's all, swanky and sounding all great and everything. He didn't want to have anything to do with that. He didn't want to hear it. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so I said, all right. So it was like a challenge. So he came back the next week, and I played him 5 songs, just playing them and sang them. And he said, great. He said, now I'm going to come back next week, and I want you to play me those 5 songs and 5 more, but I don't want you to read them from the paper. I want you to just play them. I was
Is
like,
that how
okay.
you ended up with 67 songs?
Exactly. So we kept doing that until I got up to like 67, 68 songs. And then he told me to stop. He said, stop writing. He said, that's it. We're ready to do it right.
I got to choose. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we, from those 60-some songs, we pared it down to, I think, like 27 to 30. And then it got pared down to the 11 that are on the stone.
We could easily do a 4-hour interview because we have so much stuff to talk about. But now I want to get into some of the songs because we're going to give some snippets of the songs. this is going to actually air before the week before the album will be made available. People are going to get a sneak peek at the music. So tell us about a few of the songs. Rock and Roll, as I said, I mean, when I watched that video last night, I had to get on my feet. I was just jamming. So tell me something about that somewhere at the core of yourself, no matter where you started musically, rock and roll had to be a piece of it for that to be there. Because this is a rock and roll record.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, my most powerful influences, came from rock and roll. And, what I've done with this record is just gone back and touched on, where I was at, where I am, where I was at even, before the Minneapolis sound and all that kind of took off. My family always listened to rock and roll and blues and a lot of interesting stuff like that. So I'm just reconnecting with that. But rock and roll itself was just, it was just a song that came out. It was just in me. And before I knew it, it was like, I mean, like a lot of songs on this record, they just sort of, it seems like they were just waiting to be sort of, chosen or, picked, because they almost wrote themselves. I mean, it's like, it wasn't like I took a lot of effort, spent a lot of time or anything like that, working out chordal structures or anything like that, or lyrics or anything. It's like, basically I just started playing, and, it's like, light years ahead of line, bright star in front of you. Before I knew it, I was done.
Bright star in front of you. Short days and crazy nights, making love to more than two. Red hairs and model chicks, velvet rope and them in line. Getting out what I say, getting drunk from all the wine. You waited long enough, now it's time to play my game. Before you leave here, baby, you gonna know my name. I get all in your head, I get all in your soul. I'm not your average chick, they call me rock and roll. Yeah. I saw you in the crowd, I put you on the list. Backstage the passion flow, sparks fly with every kiss. Some call me voodoo child, some call me Sugar Ray, some call me late night, so I can make that day. Better check your history while you're looking in the mirror. I'm the voice inside of you, I'm the feeling that you feel. Come ride my limousine, hold on and don't let go. You think it's all fortune and fame, but I call it rock and roll.
André Cymone, and you're listening to Lyrical Rhapsody with Jenny Love.
So what about like Live Life? What I know right now, OK Player actually is premiering that and for people to hear now. So talk about that for a minute.
Well, Live Life, that's another song that, it has a lot to do with, to a large degree, almost autobiographical, because it's, there's aspects of it that has, just my life in it. But I just have again, a philosophy that, there's always these angel eyes that are watching you, watching what you do. And, and so Live Life is just that. It's live, you're only here. It's like what we were talking about earlier. We're only here for, the blink of an eye, and then we're gone. Then your time is over. So, live life, make your life what you want it to be. Do what you can do to make things better for yourself and for those around you. Realize that there is something larger than yourself. And that's what living life, live out loud. Change your no, to hope. And,
Andre, do you feel there's like an imprint? I don't mean to interrupt, but do you feel like there's an imprint? Because when I was listening to that song, I felt that very much so. And whenever you speak about your mother, I just feel this foundation. I was thinking this when you were even speaking this phone call. When you talk about your mom, there's this foundation that I believe is what nurtured the authenticity and the social consciousness and all of that within you. And also what you've gone through in your life, with losing your brother. Do you feel that imprint on this song? Because it really comes through for me. Is that a threat to something? Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, there's a line in it that, is specifically, talks about my brother. Because my brother was a very colorful, he lived a very colorful, very interesting life, and he was a very powerful influence on me, in a lot of different ways. And, obviously I miss him immensely. And so, but he's always, with him and my mother, they're always here. They'll never, they'll never go away. They have a piece of real estate in my heart that, I visit, and so it's in everything that I write and everything that I do, they're always a part of me. They're right here. So, yeah, absolutely. And, there's some other songs that I've written as well that are even more, closely related to to my mother and kind of what she's kind of brought to me or gave to me as a as an individual. But my brother, the line in Live Life is like I want to be just like my brother. It's just it's really fun, and it's like it's you have that. I think we all have that. And if we don't have it now, you'll probably have it somewhere in your life where people that you have are here, and you got to enjoy them while they're here, and you got to enjoy yourself while you're here, and negativity, sorrow, all that kind of stuff.
Resentment, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, it's a waste of time because, like I say, you're only.
Well, that kind of takes you to Naked, because Naked, while it's it's telling you to strip it down. Right? Yeah,
that's a fun song. I think that might be one of my favorites. It's just it's the words are they just spell it out. They're very raw again. It's just, I think it's like might be 3 or 4 instruments on that.
Yeah.
very, very raw, and it's really more about the message. Just, I want to get naked, and people think that it's about, I want to get naked and run around, and it's not about that. It's
no,
about,
it's not.
Yeah, it's about just, it's about people really looking into what's really important, the philosophy I was talking about earlier. But it's just, it's sort of a double entendre.
And a song that really spoke to me was, I'd love to hear you say a couple of words out, is It's Not For You.
Yeah, that's a cool song. I mean, it's basically it's a love song, and it just talks about, but it's a love song that could be about a lot of different things. It could be about, my fans, for instance, because I have some amazing fans and people who really stepped up, and kind of helped me make my thing that I'm trying to do possible. But it's not for you is basically a love song, and it just talks about all the different things that if it wasn't for this particular person, I would not fly, I would not try to reach the sky, I mean I would not work hard to the bone, I'd be alone if not for you, I mean it's like It's a really cool song. In fact, it was really fun to record. I got to tell you. I mean, I was lucky and blessed to have, I got Gibson guitars. There was a girl named Jennifer Feeney over at Gibson that let me, I explained to her that I was working on a record, and she's like, "Really? Come and get any guitars that you want." I was like, "Are you serious?" I mean, because like
right?
I said, I like to help a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, it's literally candy. So, I mean, I couldn't keep them, which would have been great, but, she let, me pick any guitars I want. And I think I took like 4 guitars out of there, and, I think it took me a month to do the record. So they let me keep them for the whole month. Didn't ask me, and didn't say anything, didn't sweat me. When you bring them, and these were major guitars. I mean, these were expensive guitars. I mean, some of them, but they were just amazing sounding, and we had so much fun, because we just jammed. And the thing about this is we just jammed until we got the feel, and that's the cool thing about doing a live record. If you actually really play, and if you're actually a real musician, you understand what that's all about.
And I'm so hungry. I've been so hungry for a real record where it's not. Yeah, I've been so hungry for that. So as just one of the people, just thank you. Instruments, people, music,
interaction.
That simple. Yeah, it's just raw. And I love that you use the word organic, because that was the first thing that came to me. It's just like, this is just roots. Like, this is roots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can hear it.
Oh, God, yeah. But one of the last songs I'm going to bring up to you, because I just love the song, Let Your Sun Shine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a cool one, too. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's got like a James Bondy kind of thing going on. Just, song about, it's really, again, it's I guess a song that could be about anybody or anything. It's subjective, because it could be a love song, but it's just a cry to tell people, a message to say, let your sun shine, be bright, everybody has a light inside of them, and just let it shine. Let people see it. Let people see that you got the light of love. You got the light, and just let people see that light that's in you, because I think sometimes people walk around and, they're so, either hardcore or whatever their whole thing might be, or they're so, hung up on, not trying to, share their, their light with other people, because society's gotten to the point where, it's dangerous to do something like that, to share your light, to smile. I think your smile is your light. Your smile is your sunshine. It's, anything. I mean,
spirit, your heart, yeah. And brothers, you have most definitely shown your light on us, and I appreciate it. I'm going to ask you one more question, and that is, what message do you want to send out to all your fans? Because there hasn't been a hiatus, and people can say there's been nothing. You've been doing your thing, and there hasn't been a hiatus at all, so I'm not even going to go there. But what message do you have to the fans that know you from, what we'll say, back in the day, in the beginnings, but also to the new fans that you're attracting and that you will have? Just what do you want to say to your fans? What do you want them to know?
My message would be music is power. And if you want to see, music back to a place, or see music, elevated to its proper perspective, which, it's a power source, and I really, really believe that. And, I think that, help me do that. Help me elevate music.
By where you spend your dollars, by where you focus, by who,
exactly.
yes.
Or who you get behind, who you support, and, because, my message is just realize that there's, strength in numbers, and that I think that, there are things that are larger than our individual selves, and that collectively we can realize that. And I really think that my message would be, this is your time. This is our time. And take advantage of it. Let's make it an amazing time.
And it's going to be, I have no doubt. I am so excited for you, Andre, and this album to come out February 18th. Everyone, if you don't have it pre-ordered already, you can go to Pledge Music. You can go to iTunes. Visit Andre at André Cymone. That's AndreCymone.com. So I always end my interviews, Andre, with this question. I find it very interesting to ponder. If you had the attention of the entire world for 2 minutes, what would you want to say?
Wow, for 2 minutes. I would probably say, I'd say believe in change. I'd say things like never underestimate the power of the individual. I'd say pick a revolution for change and support it, or whoever the person is. Hopefully you'll pick somebody like me, anybody who's trying to do things that are, that are for the betterment of not just the individual, but for, our world, for the planet. And I would say know that we're all just a product of the genius of God, and that God is your conscience, and you should let your conscience be your guide.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad that you were able to do this. So thank you so much.
Wow. It's an honor. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
All right.
And until next time, wishing you all love, light, and peace.
You're listening to Lyrical Rhapsody with Jenny.
Hi, this is André Cymone, and you're listening to Lyrical Rhapsody with Jenny Love.